Hi, everybody. We are live now. It's a great pleasure to be with you in this morning here in São Paulo for our second day of the 7th BRICS Conference. This is an event hosted by our study group on BRICS countries of the Law School of the University of São Paulo. Our study group is promoting this annual conference for the 7th year in a row. So it's a great pleasure to be here as a founding member of GBRICS, and also on behalf of Professor Paulo Borba Casella, who is the leader of all the initiatives and all the things that we do in our group. So I would really like to thank you a lot for being with us, and special for our sponsors, Ibrachina, who is very kindly giving us all the infrastructure needed for the promotion, and most of all for making it possible to do it online with a good connection and a good transmission on YouTube. So thank you, Ibrachina, for this very important partnership with our group, and also Miguel Neto Advogados, who's sponsoring the whole conference, and our traditional partners in promoting this event, FGS, our friends from India, SABYA, our friends from South Africa, LIDE China. So it's a great honor to be in this panel, this very distinguished panel, in which we are going to discuss some of the most important topics related to agriculture in a global scale, in a global view. But more than that, we are going to discuss topics that are very important for mankind, for people. We are talking about agriculture. We are also talking about food. We are also talking about health. We are talking about environment. We are talking about social development. Agriculture goes through it all. So it is one of the most important topics to be thought internationally, and this is what we are going to have here. And for this discussion, we have the opportunity to have with us three very important leaders in agricultural business here in Brazil and South Africa. We have participants of this panel who share with us their views and their professional views also on the topics we are going to discuss. But three women, three leaders, and three very inspiring people. It's very important to note that women leadership is also raising in agribusiness, in the agri-industry, and it's very nice to have three great representatives of this new era of agribusiness and this development and evolution of agribusiness sector in terms of diversity as well. So I'm very glad to share with you the bios of our three panelists. I will be moderating the panel. I'm José Nantala. I'm one of the founding members of GBRICS. But our panelists, the first one that I would like to introduce is Nandi Maguanazi. Nandi, please, if I spell your name wrongly, just correct me. Okay. I've been training it, so
You did a good job.
great. Nandy is an award-winning entrepreneur, farmer, and owner of Nanloy Organic Farm. She is investing so much in changing the African narrative in the areas of food security, climate change, and solution-based education. As the African Youth Business Council chairperson, she is working to advance the agenda of women and youth in agribusiness and educating the youth about the opportunities available through AFCTA. And she uses her project management background to develop and empower communities and to address challenges such as poverty, unemployment, and violence against women and children. So you may see how important is the agenda and the commitment that Nandy is taking in her life and her life journey. So good morning, Nandy. I will introduce everybody and then we can start talking about our topics, okay? The other panelist is Marisol Sapatel. Marisol Merusi Sapatel is a vice president for legal ethics and compliance and institutional affairs at Eurochem South America. She has more than 20 years of experience, most of them in agribusiness in Brazil. She holds a master professional degree in agribusiness from FGV, Fundação Getúlio Vargas, in partnership with Escola Superior de Agricultura Luiz de Queiroz. Those who are watching us and who are Brazilian, we are very familiar with ESALC. It's one of our top agribusiness schools here in Brazil. And MBA in agribusiness as well from Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and other 3 post-graduation courses. This is a little bit about Marisol. And Beatriz Barrio Nuevo. Beatriz Barrio Nuevo is General Counsel Brazil at COFCO International, the agribusiness platform of COFCO Corporation, one of the biggest Chinese business in the world. China's largest food and agriculture company. With more than 20 years of professional experience, Beatriz also holds an LLM from the University of Miami, 2 postgraduate degrees in economic and business law and business management from FGV, Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and the JD from Centro Universitário de Brasília, all very important institutions, educational institutions here in Brazil as well. Beatriz is a member of the board of directors of ABOV, Brazilian Association of Vegetable Oil Industries, and one of the legal department's committee at Brazilian Bar Association. So we have here 3 panelists, very important in terms of business, but also in terms of development of people of agriculture, and who are going to share with us their views and their worries about the topics we are going to discuss. So first of all, we have decided among us prior to this live that we would like to move on in a more fluid way of discussing those topics. So we are going to make much more like a conversation, an informal conversation and the debate than to have really expositions and lectures, single lectures of each panelist. So we are going to have discussions. We think it's more maybe it's more interesting for you as well as you participate of this panel. So the first topic we are going to discuss here is food security. Food security is one of the top, one of the most important topics on agriculture, if it's not the most important one. When we talk about agriculture, we talk about food, we talk about feeding people. So on this particular topic, on this particular issue, Nandi, what do you have to share with us of your view and of your personal experience on increasing food security and enhancing, cherishing food security in South Africa and in international projects that you are involved with?
What I would have to, well, firstly, thank you so much, for inviting me to contribute to the panel. I am so honored, to be among such esteemed and accomplished females that are really working to contribute on a global scale, not only to the agri-sector, but just generally to business. So thank you so much for inviting me. And speaking about food security from an African perspective, one of the key things that I would like to mention, just starting off our conversation, is how critical the collaboration amongst the BRICS nations has been to the development of our food systems. Collectively, we've seen how the nations have contributed to, food production and the movement of, finished products amongst the nations. So, currently, Africa, as many other nations globally, is experiencing challenges due to climate change. So we're starting to see, a shortage of yields. We're seeing exacerbated issues when it comes to disease and pests. But, we are such a resilient people that we've been able to, find hope, even in situations where there is no hope. So currently, African entrepreneurs are working very hard and very intentionally to change what we're currently seeing, where, Africa was previously known as still is known as a disadvantaged community, as a continent that's not food secure. But what we're finding on the ground is that communities have started relying a lot on their own indigenous food systems and indigenous seeds. And from a very small and home level, people are starting to be very self-sufficient. And we're seeing this have a rollover effect, where, those that can't produce food for themselves, they're relying heavily on the smallholder farmers that are within their locality. So we're seeing that our government is contributing quite fiercely to developing, the food systems within the agri space and even at the community level. So when food security is concerned, I'm quite hopeful, especially with the engagements that we are going to have today. I know Marisol and Beatrice, are the leaders in their various professions and companies. And, already based on the conversations that we've had already, I've learned so much from them. And I'm looking to learn how they've managed to build, their various departments that they run in order to contribute, to food securities within the various countries that they're operating from.
Very nice. And we can see from this first participation, Andy, that how food security is also related to hope and to the life of people, and how it is important to how it's important to invest on it, the public investment on this initiatives, and in the even in the in the familiar production, and the production of the small communities is important, because sometimes they don't have access to the big dealers, to the big industry. And sorry. So sometimes they don't have access, and raising their own food would be the way to go, and how public and government investment is also a key issue to promote it. So Marisol, what do you have to share with us regarding food security, and in your personal experience, and what your company Eurochem is developing in this regard?
Well, thank you, José. Thank you, Nandi and Beatriz. It's a pleasure being here with you to discuss such important issues and topics that we are facing day to day here. Well, I'm from Eurochem, and I joined Eurochem 1 year ago. And what I say is that it's been challenging to supply fertilizers to the world, and at the same time, it's amazing how we can change and to assure the food production in several regions. Just a little about Eurochem. Eurochem is a vertically integrated group. It has operations in more than 40 countries, and it produces fertilizers that is sufficient to feed, in fact, millions of people around the world. So for us, it's important to assure that not only fertilizers are produced, but also that they are delivered to the rural producer, to the ones that really need it. So this is one thing that it's in the heart of food security discussion. So how to provide and the sources, how to support the development of the areas. So this is one thing that I am experiencing here at Eurochem since the last year. What I may say is, in the group, we have mining projects in some parts of the globe, and what we are trying to do is to continually flow the fertilizers to all the regions, to Africa, to South America, to North America, well, to all the countries that need it. And what I say is fertilizer is essential not only to food production, but also to help an environmentally perspective, to stop to help to recover degraded soils, to stop deforestation. So this is key to our growth. When I say not our, when I say company, but as a country in Brazil and as and in the world as well. So this is one thing that I am trying to help, and also supporting the producer, the rural producer, to receive the product in a timely manner, so it's applied in the crop by the time it's needed, and etc. So there are several challenges, and these are just a little of them.
This is very important, and how this particular topic, food security, kind of embraces the whole discussion on agriculture internationally, and how it's important to understand food security and to link it with environmental issues, sustainable development, and how companies and countries must look at it as a whole. We must understand those issues as complementary, and try to gain efficiency of the solutions that we have to permeate all of them. So this is very interesting, Marisol. And Beatriz, what do you have? I'm here with my microphone in my head. It makes no sense at all. But Beatriz, what are your thoughts on those topics, and what do you have to share with us regarding food security, and also considering what Marisol and Andy already told us? Beatriz, can you hear us?
Okay. Thank you, José, for the introduction. Thank you to VIBRICS for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be speaking in this event alongside my colleagues here, Marisol and Andy. Yes, can you hear me? I was listening well. Can you hear me, Marisol?
Yes, Beatriz, your image is frozen for us, but we can listen to you.
Looks
well, it seems Beatriz.
I think she fell. This is something that happens in lives all over the world.
She's joining for sure.
This does not happen in presidential events.
I can't believe
no
in the
problem.
time I was speaking.
Yes.
I can't believe everything was perfect in the time to speak. It's Murphy's Law, right? Now can you hear me well?
We can hear and we can see you.
Okay, perfect.
It happens.
Oh my God.
I haven't participated in a single live that something like that didn't occur.
Really?
So
it never happened to me.
I think it's my fault.
I will start again. So first of all, thank you, VIBRICS, for the invitation. Thank you, José, for the introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here speaking in this event and alongside my colleagues Marisol and Andy. Really an honor to be here with you. So when we talk about food security, I thought it would be interesting to share with you a little bit of COFCO's history, because actually COFCO was founded in 1949 in China. And at that time, China was facing significant food security challenges due to the food shortages. So government of China decided to create COFCO to secure and stable food supply to the Chinese population, including cereals, oils, and foodstuff. So COFCO was created to address food security and self-sufficiency in China. Of course, over the years, the company has evolved, diversified its businesses, and became one of the agribusiness leaders in agricultural trade and processing and logistics, with presence all around the world. And COFCO has been feeding nearly a quarter of the world's population today. So just talking a little bit more about food security and trying to connect with what Nandi said about, what South Africa has been ongoing. I think food security is actually a fundamental concern for all nations, because not only affects the health and well-being of the population, but it also affects political stability and economic development. So it's the basis for the well-being of any country in the world. It's interesting, Nandi, I was preparing a presentation actually for the global meeting we had at COFCO a month ago. And I was reading a report that I welcome you all to read. It's a very interesting and recent report from OECD. They did an agricultural outlook for the next 10 years, so 2023 to 2032. And they did this report, OECD, together with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And they are making a projection of an annual increase of 1.3% in global food consumption in the next 10 years. And this is driven by population and economic growth, and also expansion of all urbanization movements. When we put that in the regions with large population expansion, such as Africa, such as Middle East, and Asia, it's expected to increase their deficit in the agricultural trade balance. So food consumption will increase more than food production. Latin America, and especially Brazil, will follow an opposite path. So Brazil and other countries in Latin America are increasing the surplus in food production due to agricultural productivity increase. So as we are leading and we are increasing our productivity with all technology that is involved, land areas, vast land areas in Brazil, we will actually be able to provide more and more food to the world, especially in the countries where production is lower than population increase and food production. So I thought this would be an interesting data to bring to you to our discussion on food security.
Well, it's really it's really interesting, everything you said from the beginning, and how it communicates to what Marisol and Andy were talking, because something that is really interesting for me, and I think for the whole audience, is how COFCO was seen from the beginning as a part of the solution for food security in China. And we know the increasing challenge that countries like China, India, with a big population, with a massive population, how food security is a key issue for those countries, and how they must go for it, for this challenge, to from the private initiative, private projects, and public as well. How important is the government to take charge of this challenge and produce initiatives like they did in COFCO, and how Eurochem also. Marisol was talking about fertilizers, and how fertilizers are important for the development of agriculture, and how a productive soil is important to promote food security and a better place in economic development. As you also mentioned, Beatriz, how food security and agriculture development is also important for economic and social development. I think that Nandi, is Nandi here, or Nandi fell? I think she fell as well.
Unfortunately, yeah. But she will rejoin.
Yes, she's coming back.
She's facing connection issues here as well.
Yes, just for.
But yeah, we can.
No, we can.
We can continue a little bit. What I was also thinking in preparation for the panel, Jose, is that when we think about the BRICS countries, we are talking about some of the biggest populations worldwide, right? Especially India and China. But also we are talking about the biggest agricultural producers. Each one with its strengths, and so when we thought about BRICS, I was thinking about how important it is, the collaboration among the countries and cooperation among the countries, just to connect with our next topic. But it's something that we could do much more investment, as our companies have done. So I'm very proud when I think about COFCO. I'm very proud about the work done and how successful it was, the investments they made in the past to guarantee food supply to Chinese population, and all the investments that were done, because they actually invested not only in agriculture, but in all technology and infrastructure to support the food supply. So especially in Brazil, we should also be looking at the infrastructure for the productivity we are seeing. So we are increasing volumes of production in soy and corn and meat, but we are still missing infrastructure to support logistics. So China did a great job on the infrastructure, logistics, ports, railways. And that's I think, a very good example of what Brazil could do better in terms of investing in infrastructure.
And also, Beatriz, I totally agree with you when you say that we are here discussing this topic among representatives of companies which play a very important role for the whole system. And also from our perspective here, what I may say is Eurocan has an excellent level of technology in producing fertilizer, and it's bringing all this technology to Brazil to produce inland. So this is also one thing, to cooperate with Brazilians, reduction of dependency on import of fertilizers from abroad, and also to help structuring the country and developing not only the whole chain, but the workforce and etc. So this is one thing that is very important for us, because we have countries that are very relevant in this whole scenario. So we have China, India, Russia, Brazil in BRICS, all South Africa, and they all have key participation in this chain and the production, and to assure that the food flows to all the people needed. So again, we have all integrated activities, and we shall think towards a one and good how can I say, solution to all the countries and everyone.
Yes, and if we consider Brazil, if talking about Brazil, one of the most important issues that we must work on is infrastructure when it comes to flows to the to deliver more goods, deliver more food to the people, and to increase our productivity. Our harbors, our ports here in Brazil, they do not have enough size to receive and also to export everything that we are able to produce and also to import. So we need to work on that. Nandi, what are your thoughts and your views on infrastructure issues and food security in South Africa? Do you have anything to share with us on this particular topic? If you are listening. Great.
Yes. So please allow me to switch off my video to allow the bandwidth to at least allow me to participate in the meeting. When it comes to infrastructural development in South Africa, the government has done quite an incredible job in the last several years to, connect people to the market, because market access is always one of the biggest challenges for any company, particularly for the players in the agri sector. So we've seen them create a lot of bilateral agreements with other African countries, so it's easier to move goods and inputs, not only across the border but also within the South African region. So we've seen a lot of entrepreneurs coming up with very innovative ways, to move goods when it comes to logistics, especially when it comes to road or track, the tracking sector. So, South Africa has had a couple of challenges in that regard in the last several years, but we're seeing that with technology, with, the new software and app development that we're seeing young people creating, we're seeing a lot of efficiency happening within that sector. Of course, it doesn't mean that with all the advances that we're making as a nation, we don't have challenges, but one of the things that I'm really proud of is that, we able to pivot and collaborate with other nations, and we learn from others as much as we can, so we can grow as quickly as possible. So, we've seen a lot of development, even with our ports. We've seen a lot of development, especially with the Kucha ports that we see in the Eastern Cape and those in Richards Bay. So just generally, as a young person operating, within the agri sector, I've had previously challenges of getting my produce from farm to my market, and a lot of which is across the border of South Africa. So in the 6 years that I've actually been running my company, I've seen great improvements, especially with the AfCFTA, which allows for, one market within the African continent. And just to add on what Marisol and Beatrice said before I jumped off, what Marisol said about, the importance of having organizations, especially international organizations, that are in the forefront of ensuring that farmers have inputs on time is very critical. So, the agri sector has a lot of variables, and one being time. So, if you are not planting in time, if you're not preparing the soil in time, and, adding all the inputs that that you need rather, in order to have, efficient production, it can really derail everything, and it can compromise how one, competes within the value chain in the agri sector. So, I love that you raised that point, and it really is important. And I know it's something that we're going to touch on later, that we form those collaborations, in cooperation, not only amongst the BRIC member states, but also amongst the companies from those states. And what Beatrice said is quite true. We are seeing a huge demand, and we're not seeing supply catching up to that demand when it comes to food production, especially in the continent. And the biggest contributor to that is value addition, where farmers don't have mechanisms in place to add value to the produce that they're making on their farms. So you're having about 50 to 60% of loss happening after the produce has been harvested. So when you're talking about infrastructural development, if we see an increase in cold storage facilities, spread out within the rural economies of South Africa, where a lot of the food production actually comes from, we can start to see a change, in a shift in what Beatrice was talking about, where we're becoming more food secure, where, African farmers are actually starting to, meet that demand of the growing population, like Beatrice has said.
This is very nice, Sandy, and how we can see that some challenges that South Africa is facing, as you were speaking, are very similar, but maybe in different levels, but are very similar to the problems that we are facing here in Brazil as well, with our production and the capacity that we have to not only to export, but to deliver and to spread the production even inside our country, due to this infrastructure issues that we have here. We have a nice infrastructure, but needs much more development. And some of the issues and the efforts that you were saying that African government is making to improve this is very important, and this is what our government here should do as well. Should invest more in infrastructure to increase our capacity of delivering the goods that we and the the products that we produce internally. So I think we can move on to the other topic. I have one question from the audience regarding food security that I think it would be nice if we could talk about it rather than doing it in the end, because I think we are in this topic. Maybe it would be nice. This is a question made by our dear friend Ellen from VII BRICS, and she asked, to feed the growing population and to do it sustainably, the shift toward sustainable agriculture is an urgent priority. How could BRICS countries work to allocate resources to smallholder farmers affected by the negative impacts of climate change? We know that climate change really is a big issue in some sectors of agriculture, like for coffee producers here in Brazil, they suffer a lot because of climate change, because the way it affects even the fermentation process of coffee beans. And what do you see, Beatriz and Marisol, about climate change and food security, how one thing affects the other? Because this is a good question, because it already introduces us to ESG.
Beatriz? Very good question. I was precisely going to say that is a perfect way to jump into our second topic on ESG agenda. We have so much to say about that, right? When we think about BRICS countries and relating to the question, the truth is that what is developing countries are often more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. That's what our researchers are saying. That's what we are seeing in practice now. So ESG agenda becomes even more important. And I'm talking about sustainable agriculture when thinking about food security. It is about it, right? When we think about sustainability as a overall as the E in the ESG, we think about continuity. That's how I see. When I see it's about continuity, increasing and being able to produce more without damaging our natural resources. That is about sustainable agriculture. How we can produce more to guarantee a stable food supply without damaging our natural resources. I like to bring examples. So something we are doing in Brazil that it make my eye shine. It's a project we have been working, and several other companies are doing the same investment. Brazil is reaching record after record in soy and corn production, right? We know that. This year was a record in corn, was a record in soy. We are being able to increase productivity without increasing planted area, okay, in comparison. So we grow 20% in volume production, but we grow 3-4% in land, in planted area. One interesting project that I wanted to highlight that I see as a very good example of sustainable project is expansion in degraded areas. And this brings the importance of fertilizer and recovering soil. So Brazil has a vast land of already degraded areas. These used to be pastures that are now areas in very poor condition. So there is a project connected to the government. MAPA, our Minister of Agriculture, is leading this project with technology of Embrapa. We are connecting with private investment to recover those degraded areas. So the idea is that we can expand planted area without opening new areas that could incur in deforestation that nobody wants. So this will require the private investment to recover the soil together with farmers. So we connect farmers, industry, and the government with a financing agent the financing agent may be a bank, maybe the company itself, as we are doing. And it's about 4 million hectares that we can now plant and continue to increase production without damaging areas. And to the opposite, we are actually recovering area. So we are turning an area that was emitting greenhouse gases to an area that will be capturing, and so we are doing a good exchange when we also talk about carbon emissions. So instead of an area that was capturing that, we will be generating good quality and stop producing greenhouse emissions. I will let Marisol speak a little bit.
But that is exactly what I was going to say, Beatriz. With technology and all development that Embrapa did in the past and should be shall continue to do, to develop technology and grains, and to assure that we have cultures that are adaptable to our type of soil, and also to recover those degraded areas. So these are the two things that may help us in providing enough and producing enough grains and foods, and also to feed animals, because we also talk about proteins here, without degrading new areas or opening new areas for planting other cultures. This is one thing that is, I think that is one of the most important things in the agriculture here in Brazil, and also for rural producers, because they are also affected by deforestation. So we shall not see the rural production as an evil to the environment, but on the contrary, they are also concerned in how to conserve and how to promote to recover those areas that were degraded in the past, and also to improve their production. So technology and cooperation among the parties are essential for those achievements.
This is you touched a very important point. Sometimes agriculture producers are seen, mostly in Brazil. I don't know if in South Africa is like this as well, Nandi, but in Brazil, sometimes people see the agriculture sector here as responsible for deforestation, responsible for many other issues that we have here, when we also see the agricultural sector here in Brazil as one of the most engaged in resolving greenhouse effect issues, in resolving biodiversity issues, in addressing many of the most important topics in an effective way, with partnering with government, with Embrapa, as Beatriz just mentioned, recovery of soils, of productive areas, avoidance of new deforestations. What is your view on this point? Then we change for the ESG topic that we are going to discuss next.
So, I believe that promoting sustainable agricultural practices is critical to long-term food security. And both Marisol and Beatrice touched on those key issues, especially when it comes to the degradation of soil. We've seen that excessive monocropping in South Africa, especially in the Free State region, has really degraded the soil to the point that there are some areas that used to be, known to contribute quite a lot, especially when it comes to grains, that have, slowly seen a decrease in production over the last couple of years. And we're seeing that now, with a move to incorporate, sustainable practices and protecting biodiversity and the local ecosystem, we're starting to see, some light when it comes to that, with, healing our soil and, increasing our yields. So it's not something that farmers can do in isolation. And, Beatrice was right. You do need that private and public partnership in order to be able to achieve the goals that, the nations have. So for me, as a farmer, it's one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about. I advocate for sustainability. I advocate, for focusing especially on localized seeds that have, been proven to be drought tolerant and, somewhat resistant to a lot of the pests and diseases that we're seeing in the last couple of years. So, even now, currently, South Africa is grappling with the avian flu. And we're seeing that, it's the smallholder farmers that are contributing to, the surplus in eggs, which was severely affected by the avian flu. So, that the private and public partnership is very critical to, changing the tide when it comes to food security and the biodiversity issues that we've been having. But I do believe that, Brazil has made great strides in that regard. And we've also seen that South Africa has been championing that, to increase that biodiversity, like I mentioned.
Can I jump in just to connect?
Of course.
Because I really like it to hear what Nandi said about their practices and initiatives there. It's interesting to hear about succession of crops. This is a highly successful, sustainable practice that Brazil has. So Brazil, Nandi, it's interesting. I think Brazil is one of the only countries in the world that can have up to 3 harvests in the same year. So 3 harvests in 1 year in the same plot of land. So, and because they are doing succession of different cultures, different crops, we are not, the soil gets much better because it increases biodiversity. And this is because we plant soy, we plant then cotton and then corn. So the alternatives that we have to plant in the same area actually avoids degrading the soil, as you just said, that you saw what happened with your land there. So this is one of our good sustainable practices here. And also another one that I really like, and I've been studying a lot on that, is the integration of farm, agriculture, and forest in the same land. So this is another good example of a sustainable practice on environmental.
Wonderful discussion. This is really inspiring.
Can I just, if you'll allow me, Jose?
Of course, the floor is yours.
Yes, just before we move further in the conversation, I actually love that you actually mentioned food forests. So, in mixing that agriculture with forestry, we're seeing a lot of increase, especially in other African countries, because they like South Africa have a lot of challenges when it comes to floods. Like I mentioned, some regions of South Africa are currently experiencing that. And they found that actually, because of deforestation, there was nothing to prevent the loss of topsoil because the trees have been removed. So now that, people are starting to reintegrate those systems where, you're not only, using the land just for food production, but you also, reintroduce trees that are indigenous to that area, you start to see that, you're also healing the land while feeding the people. So in spearheading and advocating for sustainable principles, you're also not affecting the economy, because now if you're saying that let's remove one, in favor of the other, there is going to be that negative effect and negative impact on someone. So marrying the two of, introducing food forests actually, does not only increase food production for local economies, but it also, contributes to the GDP of the different African economies, as we've seen happen in the last couple of years. So thank you so much, for making that point, Beatrice. And of course, Brazil is championing that. You're definitely right. Based on the data and the reports that I've been seeing, that region is doing exceptionally well, even as a way of combating climate change.
Great, thank you, Nandi. Good discussion. Yeah, lots of, we have so much to share. That's it. We should be doing it more and more, because it's all about sharing experiences and learning with each other.
Definitely.
And this is why events like these are made for, and hence exchange. So thank you all. It's already been so inspiring, the discussions that we are having. Marisol, do you want to point something out, or shall we move on to the next topic?
Well, Jose, I just think that we cannot forget to say that by doing this, integrating crops to forests and etc., we are also developing, as Nandi mentioned, developing community and social aspects. And this is also a part of the ESG of strategic plans for all companies and countries. And what we are trying to do here in Brazil, and I also believe that Nandi in South Africa and all other people are trying to do, is try to harmonize the production of grains and food to the preservation of forests, and also to the development of of community and social aspects. So this is one thing that we are also doing here by developing the community around our plants, and where we are developing our activities, and trying to create a chain, in fact, more a strength, the chains that we have in agribusiness sector, and also contributing to all the other effects that we are trying to promote. So this is one thing that we cannot forget. And thanks.
And this is a perfect bridge for the ESG discussion. And I really believe that we already touched many topics related to ESG in this last discussion that we had among us. But what I would like to know from you, for a starting point, is when we talk about ESG, we talk about environment, but we also talk about social and governance. So we already talked about that food security relates to environment, relates to social, of course, and in the end, even with governance. And how ESG is important for the development of the agricultural sector as a whole, not only considering food security, which is, at least in my opinion, the main objective of any agricultural public policy, for example, but how ESG helps the development of the agricultural sector in a global view of the industry. Beatriz, would you like to start?
If Nandi wants to start, I know it's his passion. It's her passion. I don't
mind. Of course.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Beatrice. So, ESG considerations are essential for the sustainable development and long-term prosperity of any country. And we're seeing that investors and businesses, particularly in the BRICS countries, are recognizing that importance. And, they're factoring it in the decision-making processes. So, in South Africa, we've seen that a lot of the multinational corporations and financial institutions that have branches here are integrating, ESG considerations, not only in the investment strategies, but also in the operations. And, government and regulators have also started implementing policies and regulations that not only promote sustainable and, responsible business practices, but they are actually, doing a lot of dissemination where, they do roadshows where they're educating the general public what exactly are ESGs, how does it apply to them. They also, some companies, we're starting to see that they're offering their staff or the employees rewards, for creating a more sustainable use of the resources within the company. So, I really do believe that by adopting ESG principles, as a nation, South Africa, can start attracting investments, and, we set to reduce risk and, of course, improve social conditions and, like you mentioned, enhance government. So ultimately, of course, which will contribute to a more equitable and environmental sustainable future, which is what every nation strives for.
Yeah, this is perfect. That's all about it, right? That's why the various stakeholders in the supply chain, including governments, international organizations, private sector, industry, we all recognize the importance of ESG principles. And especially when we talk about ESG in agriculture, that's what provides sustainable agriculture, socially responsible, economic viable, because also we need to connect the investment on ESG to the results, to what it brings back to a farmer. So when a farmer adopts sustainable practices, he needs to see the return of this investment. Otherwise, it will always be hard to talk about it, right? It needs to be seen as an investment and not as a cost, because that was the problem in the beginning. It was being seen as a cost, and now finally we reached a point where ESG is being seen as an investment in the social community, in the workers that you have by adopting and respecting labor laws and regulations. This is extremely important. Talking about agriculture, rural development, how we improve the quality of life in the rural areas. This has been playing, we have very good examples in Brazil. We can talk about Mato Grosso, for example, that used it to be, talk about equality. I like that, Nandy, reducing inequality. Brazil has a good example, Mato Grosso, and especially in the region. It used to be one of the regions with the biggest inequality. I don't know if you saw in the newspaper about 2 weeks ago, in Estado de São Paulo, they were saying the effect of agriculture and the economic results by increasing the wages of the population there, how much Mato Grosso reduced the distribution, of income and reduced the inequalities. This is about ESG. This is about applying the right principles and doing the right thing. And when we bring governance, it's also very important to talk about transparency, ethics, and integrity. So I think that's really a summary. We can do a deep dive, but that's overall the importance. I think even when we talk about financing agents to get credit, farmers depend on credit. We know, at least in Brazil, farmers depend on credit. Credit has been granted at lower interest rates when the farmer is able to show that he is adopting environmental good practices. So same internationally, COFCO, for example, has a sustainability-linked loan of $1.4 billion that, of course, is connected to very high commitments to sustainable practices in the whole chain. So that's why we got this, this loan. And this affects the chain. That's why it's good to make sure we will comply with our sustainability linked law, and we need to guarantee that we will not purchase products from farmers that are not adopting sustainable practices. So we will refuse buying from farmers that are deforesting, that are, not respecting working laws, that are not respecting the regulations in their country. And Brazil especially has a forest code that is very strong. So we must be able to use our influence as a big company, as an industry. We must be able to use our influence, towards the chain to make sure we have respect to ESG principles along the value chain.
Excellent, Beatriz. Just that's amazing, really, to listen to you, Nandi and Beatriz, and how everything is linked. I always say that we are not isolated, and our activities are not cannot be seen as the more important one, and we are all linked. And what I say about ESG is we commonly see the discussions going towards environmental aspects, but sometimes we do not take care of the social aspects of the ESG in the way that we would like to do this. And one thing that I say is, by the way, by developing activities in the rural areas, in the countryside, and as you mentioned as an example, the state of Mato Grosso here in Brazil, we were able to develop those communities. And we are also, as you say, like big companies, private, Erican is a private company, but as private companies, we are developing health, safety, we are promoting courses and training people so they do not have to go to the major capitals of the country, so they can stay in their areas and they can develop economically activities there. So this is also very important for the ESG program, and we shall also pay more attention to that and how positive the effects are to all of us, not only to agribusiness, but for the whole country and us as population.
This is very important. Andy, your work, what Marisol said just touches very, very, very deeply on what is your work in South Africa, engaging the communities and the development of agriculture, and how you manage to do this, and the mission of your own company or your own initiatives. What is your view?
Okay, so yes, you're quite right. Empowering communities is central to my work. And what I've learned through the years is that people know firstly what they need. People do have ideas of how to actually help themselves. So when my team and I and the organizations that I work with, we're going into a particular community, we're not going in there as solution bearers. We're not going there as though we know it all. We actually go into these communities, and we design solutions with them, because, like I said, they know what they need better than any outsider can. So what we found is that, like Marisol was saying, what Beatrice was saying before I go to what Marisol was saying, is that when you throw terms like ESG, SDGs, to people, it feels like it's an added cost. It feels like it's something else that they have to go relearn, when in actual fact, you'll find that, people in these communities and even, the multinationals were already, doing things that are related to concepts like ESGs. So, I found that because I work with other commercial farmers that focus on producing grains. So what I found in interlinking the two, in working and bringing together, your commercial farmer and your small scale farmer, you are able to integrate their operations, and you find that your large scale producers are able to give capacity to the up and coming farmers. And what you end up finding by doing that is that you shorten the learning time, the learning time for our farmers that are up and coming. You help them mitigate a lot of risks, because now I don't need to go and make the mistakes that somebody that's already operating on a large scale is already doing. So, working in silos doesn't work, but actually collaborating and seeing what each needs has actually contributed to the success of the work that I do in South Africa. Of course, I work with the South African Organic Sector Organization as well. And in the last 3 years, we've been working, through the PGS, which is the Participatory Guarantee System of South Africa. We've been working on a program called the Pollinator Program, where we're actually doing exactly what Marisol and Beatrice has been saying, in scaling up sustainable principles across the SADC region by integrating things that people already know and understand with things like SDGs, with the concept like that. We've helped a lot of farmers scale in the last 3 years. They've increased their productivity, they've increased their profitability, and they are also now in a position that they can start actually equipping the employees with skills that they need, not only to develop them as contributors to the business, but it actually develops the employee as well in a personal level. So I really do love the contributions that both Marisol and Beatrice have said. And of course, both Eurochem and COFCO have done incredibly well in ensuring that, socially, the social impact in the countries that they are operating in is something that, they're spearheading. So I find that to be very impressive, and to know that women, also hold very high positions and they contribute actually to those policies, gives me such encouragement. So that's what I would like to contribute as a parting shot.
And José, just to complement, I strongly believe in the private sector engagement, not only as we said here, but when we talk about industry associations. So I think this is another good example when we talk about, especially on the environmental initiatives that we are taking, to be strong and to really have the effect we want to achieve, because otherwise working alone, we will not make a difference. We need to link it to each other. As we said, we are all linked, and we need to work together to reach the goals we want to reach. So I was just thinking while Nandy was talking, some good examples that we are working here, and I'm personally working on this project. It calls Roadmap 1.5 Celsius degrees. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it was signed in the United Nations Conference in the COP27, where the biggest trading corporations, which are actually one of the biggest companies worldwide, they signed a commitment that is called Agriculture Sector Roadmap 1.5 Celsius. That is actions to be adopted for the soy sector specifically. They are consistent with the goals of reducing emissions from land use, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. So those will entail a lot of actions from the industry to make sure we achieve those goals. And right now we are working on this roadmap together with our competitors. So we need to sit together. We need to, of course, taking care of competition rules, right? We need to be watching out all antitrust rules. We need to be very careful with that. But if we don't work as a sector, if we don't work together, we will not be able to reach the goals we want, especially when we talk about climate change. So this is just, you know, a compliment, because I just thought about it and said, this is important to share, this industry initiatives. And we do sometimes with the trade associations. I mentioned about ABIOV, which association I'm very proud of being part. They are doing a great job on ESG and sustainability metrics.
Very, very, very nice. And Marisol, do you have anything else to share, or we go to the, because we have some questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, no, just to say that yes, Beatriz, companies are competitors in their final activities, which is in the case trading, but we are cooperating among each other towards the most effective practices and to achieve the final goals that we want as a society. So yes, again, we are all concerned about competition and all the regulators and etc. And we are taking care of that. But again, when we want to make the change, we are all together. This is our final goal. So amazing to listen that you are in person participating of that. And Jose, yes, please go on with the questions.
Great. I have a good question here on this particular topic. We already touched some of the issues raised here by our dear friend Cassio Zen. Cassio Zen is is a very important teacher and one of the members of GBRICS as well. He asks us how to manage possible conflicts between the idea to increase profit, monocultures, with the biodiversity of different producers or productions. In other words, how can agro help biodiversity while at the same time having profit, both fair objectives? So how to manage biodiversity and profit? We have already talked a little bit about it when we showed here how biodiversity and how respecting the environment also increases production rates. But what do you have to comment on that? And what is because, for example, Beatriz and Marisol, you are always in touch with the board of your companies and how they see this curve of environment and profit, how your companies manage the decision making when you are addressing this kind of issue. And Andy, you as an entrepreneur, how do you see if there is a dichotomy? How do you see this kind of issue? Please, you may choose whoever wants to jump in first.
Okay. Can I quickly jump in and respond? So that's a brilliant question, and it's something that's important to highlight, that in as much as the ESGs, SDGs, biodiversity and protecting ecosystems has a really, really positive impact, not only on the environment, but on people and the economy. But they also is the competing of, the competition of how things were traditionally done. And when people are used to a particular way of doing things in a system, when a new way that seems to, bring about progression and efficiency is introduced, there will definitely be that conflict and that clash. So for me, because I believe Marisol and Beatrice will comment on how it happens at the high level when you're dealing with multinational companies. I will deal with it. What happens on the ground is that there really is a pushback initially when you're introducing those concepts to whether it's smallholder farmers or medium or to large scale. So there will be that pushback because, like I said, and like Beatrice said, it sounds like it's an added cost, and it's going to. So the easiest way that I've seen it being done, and how I've also tried to navigate and balance those two, is that you have to slowly introduce these concepts. You really honestly cannot expect farmers and multinationals to overnight introduce a new regulatory framework of doing things. There's policy considerations, there's contract considerations, there's impact to profitability that you have to consider. So when you trying to bring in a new way of doing things that definitely will be positive, you actually have to also consider how it's going to impact the people that you're looking to introduce that to. So that's the easiest way that I found to manage that conflict is you slowly introduce the concept. You show people, you have to show them where has it been piloted, where has it been applied, how long was the turnaround time, how long did the soils take to start being fertile again, how long do these different companies that have implemented these policies started to see an increase in profit, how have they been able to retain their staff. So it's all good and well to want to do good, which is what we're all invested to do, but it's also very important to take into consideration that conflict that definitely will happen when you're trying to bring about change. So that's my contribution is slowly do it, show people where it's been done, and also consider how it's going to affect their way of life and their way of generating income.
This is great. Who's jumping in now?
Do you want to take it, Marisol, first? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, what I try to think is when investments are being made here in Brazil by the company, and when we take decisions on investments, we take into consideration some aspects. And one thing is, how can we do it better? How can we do this without or affecting less the environment and biodiversity? Or what else can I do to compensate the investments that I'm doing, which will in the end affect somehow? So these are all the questions that we raise while analyzing a project or a investment. And this is one thing that we try always to discuss and debate, how to better do the things that we are doing now. So the challenging is, how can we do it better? How much does it cost? Of course, because the resources, financial resources are limited, of course, but they are all driven to best investments from all perspectives. So this is one thing that the board and also I take into consideration when analyzing something.
Yeah, I agree, and I would connect with Nande's answer that this does not happen overnight. Any company, regardless of the size, from a small farmer to a big industry, it starts small. We should always, when we talk about investment on ESG, we start small, and those are building blocks. That's how I see investment on ESG, building blocks, because we start seeing the results of the investment you are doing, and then you will start increasing and increasing. And why? Because of course, for I totally understand that, for example, for a small farmer, his incentive to invest on sustainable practices are much smaller than a big industry who will get bigger returns on the investment. So his environmental impact is smaller. And I was looking at it when I was, studying this new EUDR. So, for example, we now have the anti-deforestation legislation in Europe. We will need to comply if we want to sell our products to Europe. Europe responds for what? Almost 40% of Brazil exports. And we will need to comply. It will affect our major products being exported. Whoever does not comply will not be able to sell. Who is ready will get first and will be more prepared. The ones that have been investing more on sustainable practices will be able to demonstrate, and in the due diligence that it will be done by European authorities, we will be able to show traceability, we will be able to show what we are doing well. So in the end of the day, the society is asking for it. So honestly speaking, I think in a few years from now, this will no longer be an option. This will be mandatory if you want to survive in the market. Society is able now, there is lots of research is showing that consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable products that did not, that has traceability, that they can be sure that this product comes from a company taking seriously ESG principles. They want to pay more. Society is asking, government will be pushing, will be, increasing and creating new legislations. After European Union, you can wait. Other countries will make the same kind of legislation for products being imported by them. So it's a must. It's no longer an option. But the return will come, and it always needs to be connected to profit. That's how I see. Nobody wants to do it just because it's nice to do it. We do because we will get good returns. So better credit, lower interest rates. That's what we already see. Even for Brazil government, we can say Plano Safra, which is the credit line from the public banks in Brazil. They are offering lower interest rates to the farmers that can demonstrate that they are compliant with environmental practices. So have lots of examples. This is directly connected cost and profit.
RenovaBio, for example.
RenovaBio, yeah, good example of carbon credit, right?
Oh, this is wonderful. And I really believe that this particular contribution from Beatriz, and also taking what was said by Mary, so opens a path and a bridge to our final topic, which is international cooperation. We were talking about UEDR. And also the impact that this particular ESG issue has also, and cooperations and government initiatives, and how it must be worked with a strategic view, also caring for the profit and for the cash flow. But what have you got in mind about international cooperation? I know that Nandi needs to jump off, so it would be nice if we could start with her. So Nandi, what do you have to share with us about international cooperation regarding agriculture?
Okay, so I would like to actually speak about international cooperation in the context of BRICS. So BRICS, as a framework, has evolved over the years to now encompass a wide range of issues and areas that we all collectively working to resolve. And I've seen that with the cooperation, the grouping has done a great deal of work of supporting emerging economies, particularly like for our economy in South Africa. And it's actually been a blessing to be able to engage on global issues, as nations as opposed to doing it alone. So when we're speaking in the perspective of multinationals, I see that that sort of cooperation can also be very beneficial, especially when you're looking to develop the capacity of up-and-coming entrepreneurs. As we know, startups in a lot of developing countries account a lot to the GDP and the actual employment of the population. So if we see that cooperation between, nations within the BRICS, cooperation between the companies within the BRIC nations, rather, I think we can start to see, a trajectory that we are all envisioning, that we are not only growing our economies, but also as a collective, we see that, our contribution globally is also increasing.
Great. I thought I was muted, but I was not. So, no, thank you, Nandy. Thank you so much. If you need to jump off, just let me know. If you want to do already your closing remarks, feel free to do so as well. I know that for the sake of time, we are a little bit late. So, if you want to.
Yes. So in closing, again, I would really like to thank you for the opportunity that you've provided for me to be able to contribute to this very relevant and very critical discussion. I've learned such a lot from both Marisol and Beatrice. They are doing incredible work, and like I mentioned earlier, it's very inspiring, and it motivates me as a female entrepreneur to know that there are female trailblazers that are doing incredible things, not only for the multinationals that they work for, but also for the people that they're representing in those countries. I've got so many takeaways that that I'm going to start implementing in my own companies, and I'm looking forward to more collaborations and more engaging conversations even after this panel discussion. So in closing, thank you so much for sharing your time with me and your knowledge. God bless. Thank you very much.
Great, Nandy. Marisol and Beatriz, please, if you want to address international cooperation, if you have enough time, do so, or if you want to move on with closing remarks, or do the both. Talk about a little bit of international cooperation and then make your closing remarks, and we finalize our panel here.
Okay, now I will briefly speak about international cooperation, as this is a very important topic, but very briefly because I really need to leave. We all know here that BRICS member countries have signed several cooperation agreements, taken steps to enhance collaboration, and this is very important. But honestly speaking, when I look at what we concretely achieve as a group of countries, it's powerful houses that we are. I think we should really work towards the creation of a more, speaking about agriculture, right, which is our panel, having kind of an agriculture forum where we could actually take real actions towards stronger collaboration, partnerships, cross investments between companies. We could work, to see how we could, for example, lower barriers, trade barriers. Why not? If we are, really looking to take concrete steps into a collaborative approach, we should be looking at how we could facilitate trade among the countries and increasing investments between ourselves. So really, in case of agriculture, I think a great integration of the BRICS countries would bring huge benefits to all the member countries in terms of food security, of sustainable development, technological cooperation, everything we're talking about here in the panel today. So that's just my closing remark. And I really would like to thank you again for the opportunity to be here. It was a pleasure to speak and discuss all these very interesting topics with all of you, and including Nandy, who just left. Very beautiful to hear all of you. Thank you again. It's an honor to be here.
Marisol, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, hard to talk about it after then, but Beatriz and Andy told most of the things that I also think about it. And just adding something to what Beatriz just said is, we from companies maybe can help providing information to the decision makers and to help to construct a policy to really indeed promote integration and collaboration between the countries. So one thing that I try to do here in my job day to day is how can we provide information? How can we spread the data? Well, of course, those that we can, but to those people who are representing the countries to know in fact what they can do and what are the necessities that may be addressed. So this is one thing that I always try to do in the day-to-day meetings and all the materials that we have here. So this is really one thing that we can help to integrate our cooperation internationally. So, and again, thanks for the invitation, Jose. Thanks for the BRICS, and congratulations, Beatriz and Andy, of course, for the explanations. We can talk hours of all the teams that we have. And well, it was really great to share this panel with you. Thank you again.
Well, on behalf of GBRICS and on behalf of Paulo Borba Casella and everybody who's involved with this VII BRICS Conference, I am thrilled about everything that we discussed. I feel really thankful for everything you did, for the presentations. I know the work you had to prepare everything for us. So on behalf of everybody, I would really like to thank you and to invite you to participate of our group's activities more often, sorry. And most important, I would really like to share that this is what we discussed today is the future, but it's also the present of our agriculture business, and everything you ladies are doing on your companies, and everything you are doing for agriculture and for development is really, really, really important. It's playing a key role in the change that we are facing. And this is why we are also defending diversity and female leadership in all business, because of those aspects, those aspects you were bringing to the table, and how you were managing those key issues in a much humane way. So I would love to thank everybody for participating of this panel. I invite you all to participate of the others. We are only in the beginning of our 7th conference, so stay tuned and get informed about the other panels that we are going to have. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.